Okay, welcome, hello, this is Eileen DeFriest and baby. This is a baby chihuahua. Her name is Beverly. You guys know Beverly. I'm babysitting Beverly at the moment. She usually likes to hang out most of the time with Julia, but for some reason she's insisting that she be on the sofa with me, so it's impossible, well, to deny this poor little puppy her desire to sit in your arm. So here she is. Hello and welcome to my channel. Please subscribe to my channel. Please turn on your notifications. Please follow me on Instagram, where you can check out my stories and my posts and have fun. I'm going to tell you a story today, and this is a story that took place about 1990 or 1991. And this was a time when I had gone back to college. Originally, when I went to college, I went for about 3.5 years. And then I left school. I just wasn't very happy. I didn't have enough money to kind of get through life, working and going to school at the same time with a full course load. And my mother was very sick. I was living away from home. I grew up in northern New Jersey, and my university or college was in South Jersey. And it was about a 2.5-hour drive away, I think, something like that. So I never graduated when I first went to college. And then I transferred I transferred twice. When I moved back up to North Jersey, I ended up transferring to a college near me in North Jersey. And this was after my mother had died. And then about a year later, I ended up moving into New York City. So I had to transfer again. So I transferred to a school there, to a university, and I was one class away from graduating. I never finished my degree. Then I transferred to another university there. So at that time, I was attending, as it turns out, it was Hunter College, which is the City University of New York. I was waitressing to earn money. I was living in the village with my girlfriend at the time, my partner of, in the end, it was 6 years that we were together. And so I was going to school and waitressing. And there was a new restaurant that opened up in Soho, or that was going to open up in Soho. And I had heard about it. So I applied, for a job there. I had a lot of, fine dining experience. Some of the, better restaurants in New York I had worked at, but I wanted something that was, that I thought where I could make a good amount of money, and also that was closer to the village. So I found this place in Soho on Sullivan Street, which is a lovely little neighborhood. It's really, really sweet. So this restaurant that I worked in, it hadn't opened yet. So the staff that was put together before we actually opened, we had some training runs where we would invite friends to come dine for free, and the kitchen would make the food and we'd serve it. So these were kind of free dress rehearsals for the opening that was imminent. One of the nights I remember, it was a small restaurant, so it wasn't a very big staff, and I think there were maybe 5 wait staff, and I was one of them. One evening after one of our dress rehearsal nights, we were sitting around inside and I think having a drink or something, or maybe having something to eat, and there was a knock on the door, and then we're already closed, and the restaurant wasn't open for business anyway, but one of the owners went to the door and let the guy in, and we were kind of a little confused, and in comes this guy in like a gym, what do you call those outfits? Darling, what's the name of those outfits, like gym tops and gym bottoms? A sweatsuit? Anyway, so there's a knock on the door, and then in comes this guy who was sort of young looking, kind of Italian looking, and he had on gym clothes, I forget what those things are called when you have a matching top and bottom. In any case, he looked, not very threatening or anything. So the owner and him huddled together in the front of the restaurant and had what looked like a a kind of emotional conversation, a kind of heated exchange. And the guys that we were, going to work for, there were two I think there were two brothers, or two guys that didn't, that weren't brothers. I can't remember, but I know that they were close, and they were, they had a really good idea for this restaurant, and they had a really nice menu, and they were, quite nice to work for. So this guy and one of the owners were at the front of the restaurant, and we were kind of concerned, we were hoping that, our boss wasn't in trouble or anything. And it was maybe a 10-minute conversation, and then the guy left. The owner spoke to the other owner. They had a, very serious conversation, and we weren't yet told what was going on. So we were sitting there just chatting, and then the bosses came over and sat down with us. I think it was both of them. I can't remember for sure. This is really quite a long time ago. They told us that, something that they maybe shouldn't have told us, because it's a really serious thing. And while the city may not run this way anymore, it did in up till probably not so long ago. Or it still may be running like this, I don't know. As it turns out, the strip of Sullivan Street, well, probably most of Soho, for all I know, had to pay the mob protection money. And this guy came to collect the protection money for a restaurant that hadn't even opened yet. Now, we didn't learn all that immediately at this point in the evening, but there were a bunch of phone calls that happened. And then the boss, one of the bosses, came back and sat with us and, explained that, that even though they hadn't opened yet, that everybody on that street and surrounding streets had to pay the mob protection money. And protection from what was the question? And the answer is the protection from the mob themselves. Now, it's just a horrible thing that the mob does. And what it does is it threatens to ruin the business, to hurt people if they don't collect the money from people. Now, there are probably a bunch of people out there for whom this may not sound that foreign. You may have heard of this kind of thing before. You may have seen it on TV. It really happens. I had never seen anything like this in my life or heard anything. In fact, when the guy left, we were sort of making slight fun of him. As it turns out, because he looked like kind of a jerk, and we thought, why is this guy giving our boss a hard time? It turns out the guy's name is Johnny Pants. And of course that's not his real name, but he was known as Johnny Pants, was collecting the protection money for that area. And he stopped by after the close of, business on one of our, dress rehearsal nights, and he needed to talk to the boss of our place, the bosses, about why they hadn't gotten their money. And a little while later, after we were sitting around talking about this, and our boss said, obviously you can't say this to anybody, but we're being pressured, and it's really unpleasant because we haven't even opened the business yet, and we're already getting told we have to pay money. So the guy ended up coming back. It turns out that the other boss, when he spoke to him, said, let me talk to my partner and, either call or if you're around, stop by. So we came in again, and we were all quiet. We were still sitting at the table. And the guy said, he said something to us, like, what are you looking at? Mind your own business or something like that. Because the air got really electric and still when he came back in. We were really concerned because, we didn't know that he'd be showing up again. So I don't know why we did this, but myself and a few others, we ended up going to the door when the guy left the second time. We ended up going to the door and we shouted some things after him. We didn't, it wasn't anything horrible. It was like, I can't even remember, but it was just like, it's all cool here, or something like that, something like silly, like, like let us open, or that kind of thing. And the guy came rushing back. He came running back, to the door, and we all ran downstairs. The kitchen was downstairs, which is an odd place to have a kitchen, but nevertheless, that's where it was. There was just a small stairway, and you were downstairs. And then there was a basement where cold goods were kept, and the boss told us to stay in there, and he closed the door, and he said, listen, you shouldn't have said anything. And the guy came back, and we couldn't hear what he was, Johnny Pants was saying to the owners, but we heard like heated words. And I just remember, I will never forget this as long as I live. I remember there was a basement window, and we had gotten, there were some boxes there or something, and I think we got a chair, and we were able to look out this thin basement window that opened in, and I could hear the voices, and he was threatening that that he wanted to see the woman or the girl who had, at that time I was, this is like 30 years ago, I was quite a bit younger. He's like, send that girl out, and the boss is like, oh, they didn't mean anything, and they were all just joking around, and he's like, no, send her out. And I heard that, I absolutely almost, it was just really upsetting. And we ended up having to stay. He left, and he was apparently very angry, and he said he was going to wait, for me to come out. And, apparently he heard, I don't know what I said. I wasn't a wise guy, but it was just like kind of jokey. We thought it was, we didn't know that it was quite so serious. And in a way, I guess we almost quite didn't believe it. We didn't know for sure if our boss was like, joking or something. And so when we went out after he left the second time, we were really just, kind of, sort of defending the place by saying stuff. And, it was just such a stupid thing to do, though, because it turns out that the guy really did work for the mob, and the mob really does take protection money, and they really don't like to be made a joke of or ridiculed or anything, even if it's kidding around. So we ended up, and I remembered staying there till the small hours of the morning, because the boss said, listen, I will get you home, but let's just stay down here, you guys. It was, a handful of us. And we stayed there, and we eventually were able to leave. Our boss, I guess, put us in taxis or something, I can't remember. But nothing came of it after all. But it was really terrifying, like really, really terrifying. As it turns out, the restaurant wasn't a success. It just didn't have the right formula for the neighborhood. I think it was too formal a kind of dining experience for the neighborhood. If any of you know Soho, West Broadway cuts through the center of Soho. Prince Street and other streets like it are a lot busier. Sullivan Street is parallel to West Broadway, and it was sort of halfway between 6th Avenue and West Broadway. So it wasn't like, it just didn't get a lot of foot traffic. Turns out, though, in 1992, it turned into Blue Ribbon, which any of you New Yorkers will know, who are familiar with downtown, with Soho and stuff, that Blue Ribbon has been a staple of New York, since 1992. It's very, very successful, and they've expanded to Los Angeles, maybe even London, I can't remember, but they've expanded into different kinds of cuisine, sushi and stuff. So that's my tale of being chased, well, not chased, but about my brush with the mob. I'll tell you though, it was really, really scary. Not because I'd done anything that was so ridiculous, but because I entered into a world where the normal rules, I entered for a small minute into a world where the normal rules don't apply, that the law was the law of the mob, and that is that there will be protection money paid, and we don't want any mouthing off from the staff. So it was a weird experience. I remember my therapist at the time telling her about that, and she was a long time New Yorker. She said, oh, that, you know, that was so common, you know, at that time, still, that people paid protection money. I really wonder if that still goes on. I know that there are various kinds of mobsters, and there's that small kind of nickel and dime, although it amounts to a lot more than nickels and dimes, where you extort money from businesses, because if you don't, then your business will be either destroyed, harm will come to your family. Now, that's the way the Italian mob has operated, or had operated. I don't know if it's still operating. It's greatly reduced if it is, and the same thing about, you know, New York, if it's even still existing, you know, or Chicago and any other cities, that their way of doing business is outdated, and their way of doing business was to extort money from people. And so that was my brush with the mob. And I tell you, don't ever mess with the mob. Please subscribe to my channel. Please check your notifications. Please also follow me on Instagram. Follow my wife too, my wonderful wife, both on YouTube and Instagram. And my puppy and I say good night. Thank you so much for watching this video. It's great to be back, and I love you guys. Bye-bye. Now, I'm going to tell another story, and this is, hello and welcome back to my channel. This is Eileen DeFriest. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm so happy you're here with me. Please follow me on, please subscribe to my channel. Please like this video if you like it. Please turn on notifications so you know when my videos are coming out, or, okay. Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is Eileen DeFriest.